Hello, welcome back to HGTV Handmade. I'm Dennis.
I'm Andrew.
And we are the Crafty Lumberjacks.
Well, summer is finally here, and we don't have any summer plans this year, but we do have a dream of driving cross-country in a vintage-style camper.
Yes, so today we are going to craft that dream, and we're going to make a concrete planter that looks like a vintage camper. So we're going to start by cutting out our board here. We're going to go about 4.5 inches for the base and the back of our planter. I'm just going to cut this in half so it's easier to work with here. And then we're going to create the sides of our planter about 7 inches long, and then we're going to round it out using the lid of a tin.
We're going to start putting everything together. We're using some foam board adhesive just so it really sticks together.
So if you use hot glue, it can melt the foam board, and we didn't want to melt it because, again, it's our first time working with concrete, so we wanted to be as careful and as cautious as we could. And then we're just going to put our back in here.
Put your back into it. Okay.
Looks pretty good.
So the glue takes a couple hours to dry, so we're going to hold it together with some packaging tape. All right, we're going to let this set to dry. We want our planter to have a rounded back. The way we're going to do that is covering it with cardboard, but scoring it so it bends. All right, so before we tape this on, we're just going to add a little detail with a door and a window. We're going to cut this out and glue it right in, and then it's going to create an indentation in the concrete.
And just while Andrew cuts out the door, I'm going to start to wrap the window with tape, just because we don't want any of our concrete to be seeping through our cardboard there.
Now we're going to glue our door and our window are right on the side like that. Before we add our concrete, we're going to spray our mold with mineral oil. It's just like greasing a pan, just so everything slides out a lot easier.
And we're using quick setting concrete with no rocks in it. It's just a powder substance. They say for every 4 cups, you should add 1 cup of water. We have about 6-7 cups here. So you do the math.
Yeah, why should we do the math?
Right?
You do the math.
I know.
It's the summer. I'm not doing any math in the summer.
It's my vacation. Making a planter. We're gonna start with a little bit of water, mix it up and see how it does. We want kind of like a pancake consistency. And of course you wanna work in a well-ventilated area, probably use gloves and a mask and all those things. All right, our concrete is mixed and it's ready to be poured. As you work here, you wanna bang it out a little bit just to get any air bubbles or any kind of imperfections. Help them rise to the top there.
We're gonna add an oval plastic container inside after we add about 1/4 of the concrete mixture.
Keep pouring in the rest of our concrete.
And just tip it so it really gets into that front area. It looks really good. Just to make sure this doesn't pop up again, we're gonna add some tape.
The packaging tape here. And this is the quick setting concrete, so it only takes about an hour for it to harden. You'll know when it's ready. The color will change. It will have a lighter color, and you'll just know that it's ready when it's ready.
Now we're gonna sand it down with 60 grit. That's really rough. Now we're gonna just switch over to some 220 grit and just do the whole thing. We're gonna wipe it down with a wet rag and then start painting.
Yes, that's when you're really gonna start to see it come alive.
I'm gonna give a base coat of white on the whole thing. We want the top part to be white, but giving a base coat really helps the other colors pop.
And while Andrew's painting, I'm gonna start working on some embellishments, some curtains. We have rocks that we dyed with a little bit of paint in a bag just to get it to the color that we wanted. And we're going to add wheels to the back. We found these at the dollar store, of course.
I'm gonna start painting the green below the painter's tape. This will give me a nice clean line.
All right, we're just gonna start adding on our embellishments. It's really gonna give it the final touch.
So we want our camper to be raised a little bit. So we're just gonna add a little dowel to the bottom. That will give us the effect we're looking for. We have our little license plate made of balsa wood. Look at this. Crafty Lumberjacks 43.
What?
All right, now it's time to fill our planter. We're gonna be using faux cactuses today because we don't live in the sunniest apartment and we have a cat. So we're gonna put some floral foam right in here. You can absolutely put real plants in here. Yeah.
And even when you're building your mold, you can put in 2 holes in the bottom for drainage holes.
And I'm just gonna stuff some paper towels because we're gonna cover it with pebbles.
It came out so good. I can't believe we turned essentially a cinder block into a camper planter.
You had to say camper
I
planter
had
one
to.
more
One
time.
more time.
Hello and welcome back to Handmade. I'm Jenny. Today we are making simple little pinch pot hanging planters with a colorful twist. Because we are working with white oven baked clay, be sure to start with clean hands and a clean work surface. So let's start by breaking off a chunk of clay a bit smaller than a ping pong ball. Soften it in your hands and work into a ball. Then press your thumbs into the ball to start to form the pot. Continue to work with the clay, pressing your thumbs in and pulling up with your other two fingers until the walls are about 1/4 of an inch thick. I don't really want it to be perfect because I like an organic feel. The fun part is that each one will be totally unique. So once you get the shape about how you'd like, we're going to work on smoothing it a bit. So like I said, I like the kind of organic shape, but I don't like the texture as much that's caused by my fingerprints. Luckily, there is a hack for that. Rubbing alcohol melts polymer clay. It only takes a little, so simply dip a paintbrush into the alcohol and dab it on. Then gently smooth the surface with your fingertips. I also like to smooth the edges. Repeat as needed, but be careful to only use as much alcohol as you need. Using too much may cause your pot to crack. Next step is to punch holes using a wooden skewer. I'm punching 3 evenly spaced holes. I like to go back after and clean up the edges of each hole. Now it's time for paint. Yes, we are going to paint before we bake. So the best paint for polymer clay is acrylic because it won't crack. I'm just using this artist acrylic that I already had. To keep it simple, I stick with 3 colors, but you can do a whole rainbow if you'd like. This is where you get to make it your own. You can see that this acrylic goes on really nicely. It covers well and isn't too matte. I'm painting 3 colorful stripes, easy peasy. Once they are done baking and have cooled, it is time to turn these pinch pots into hanging pinch pots. Measure out about 6 times the length you want your pot to hang. Thread the twine through the first hole and then through the wooden ring. Thread through the second hole and back through the wooden ring. Repeat again with the third hole and tie off to the beginning of the twine. So you may need to mess with it just a little bit to get all of the pieces the same length, but that is it. Just pop a tiny succulent in and you are good to go.
And this is my sister Jolie Socks.
We basically don't throw anything away.
And one of the things we love doing is turning these old pieces of junk into really cool planters.
It's really not going to serve much use as a patio chair anymore. It has no seat. The feet are actually totally rusted out, but we think it has a really cute shape to it and we really like this chair.
So for years we've been turning these old chairs into planters. So we're gonna take this one and show you how to make it the perfect succulent planter. We love succulents because they're super easy to take care of, which is a big plus for me. Jolie loves them because they're beautiful and they really just kind of look good in any setting. We want to give the chair a little bit of color, so we're going to do our favorite dry brushing technique with our favorite color turquoise. So dry brushing is really one of the easiest ways to paint. You just get a little bit of paint on your brush, not much, and then you just start doing this, kind of hitting all the high spots, and just don't put too much pressure because you don't want it to be solid.
But I also love the fact that you still see the rust coming through because we love rust. So you've got the rust, plus you've got turquoise, and then it's going to be a quirky little planter, so it's a whole package.
The great thing about dry brushing is it doesn't use much paint and it dries really fast.
It's actually already dry and we're ready to move on with this project. So the next step is we're actually going to form a basket where the seat used to be. We're going to use chicken wire and this is what we're going to plant in. All right, so this is just basic poultry netting or chicken wire that you can get from your local feed store. Just kind of place it over your seat and ballpark what size you want, you know, and then we're going to cut it. We're going to cut bigger than we need and then we're going to push it down and form it in here.
So to cut this, the best thing to use is just a pair of wire cutters.
You might want to throw on your garden gloves or your work gloves for this project because the ends of this wire are pretty sharp. It just makes it easier to kind of manhandle it. The goal here is to make a concave basket that you can plant in.
So then we are going to attach this with zip ties. We use zip ties because they're super easy to use and you can get something really tight.
So now that we have it zip tied all the way around, we're just going to cut off the excess chicken wire. So the first step once you get your basket built is to add sheet moss, and you can buy this really basically anywhere. We just bought a couple of bags. We line the bottom of the poultry netting with it. It holds in moisture and it also gives it a really cool earthy kind of mossy look since it's moss. After that, we're going to line it with a little burlap, and then we're going to add our potting soil. Because we're planting succulents, we're going to add a little perlite to our potting mix just to help with the drainage. So now that we have enough soil in here, we're going to start kind of placing our plants, and then we're going to backfill with even more soil. So this part is just a lot of placing and then adding your soil to be able to keep it in one place. At this point, it's just kind of a matter of you want to add different layers and textures and colors. You know, I really like the felt of these leaves versus the shiny on the others. So you kind of want to mix all these together to have a nice little mix. So the very last step right now is that we're taking all of this kind of sedum, this hanging moss that kind of trails more, and we're adding it to the very edge. So we're just filling in, we're poking it in all around the edge so it hangs over, it covers up this chicken wire and the zip ties, and it really looks awesome. So this is our awesome patio chair turned into now a really cool kind of mermaid garden succulent planter. And instead of putting this at the store we thought we were going to, I think I may have to steal it and take it home.
So the first thing we're going to do is remove any labels from the container. So now we're just going to remove the lid, and then we're going to pop off this top piece of plastic. So now it should look something like this, and in order to get that moon shape that we're going for, we're going to need something round to trace. So I found that this pot lid that I had was about the right size, but you know, you can grab anything round that's about this size. So position it so that you end up with a nice moon shape, and don't put it too far down. You want to have enough space down here that you can actually fill it with soil. So I think that's looking pretty good. We're just going to trace it with a marker. All right, so after carefully cutting all of that out, we should end up with a shape like this. And now we can just grab our circle again to trace. So our next step is to just get rid of all of this excess marker, and we're going to do that with rubbing alcohol. Just get a little bit onto a paper towel, and then when you rub it over the marker, it will lift up and disappear. The next thing we're going to do is grab some sandpaper, and we're going to sand the edges and also all of the surfaces on the outside and on the inside. You might also want to use your scissors to smooth down any spots that are a little too sharp, and then go over the edges with sandpaper to smooth them out, and go over the surfaces to give us more texture for our paint to stick to. So all of the planters that I've seen online that I'm emulating are gold. So I'm also going to paint mine gold, but of course you can paint yours any color that you like. And it might be faster to spray paint it, but I already had this brushed metal gold acrylic paint, so that's what I'm going to be using. It might look a little streaky at first, but just keep adding more coats and the color should build up. So in addition to our actual planter, I also want to give it a base. For that, I'm using an old empty roll of masking tape. I'm going to paint this white and then the same color gold. Our next step is to take our ring, and we're just gonna hot glue it onto the bottom of the planter. And that is our moon planter finished. I love how that looks. I think it looks so good.